Hello lecturer and everyone. We are from group 4 and our members are Sakmay, Lai Ing, Chandet, Sawanratana and me, Maniret. We will be presenting to you about the second part of the chapter 8, Deviance and Social Control, which is from part 3, Crime and Punishment. The first part of our content is the conflict perspective, while the second part is the reactions to deviance, which also consists of three parts. First, the decline in violent crime. Second, legal change. And finally, the medicalization of deviance. Let's get started. First, the conflict perspective. So, what is a conflict perspective? The conflict perspective is a view of society that assumes conflict as a normal feature of social life. It focuses on the distribution of resources, power, and inequality. The conflict perspective has a big relativity to class, crime, and the criminal justice system. Let's check out one case happened in 2008, which is a good reference to the point mentioned. Soup manufacturing in North Dakota made helmets for the U.S. ground troops in Iraq and Afghanistan. However, two former managers reported that the company had set their looms to use less Kevlar, a fabric that deflects some shrapnel and bullets than they were supposed to. For doing this would endanger U.S. soldiers and could even cause great casualties as well. So, what kind of punishment did they get for such a serious crime? Where the executives of silk manufacturing were put on trial and for how long were they sentenced to prison? Actually, those who ordered this crime weren't even put on trial and no one spent even a night in jail. The company just paid a fine and the government still gave them the contract to make more helmets. Let's compare it to the crime of poor people who got caught stealing. What kind of punishment do those people get? The answer would be prisons. How can a legal system that proudly boasts justice for all be so inconsistent? Because of this inconsistency lying in the legal system, conflict theorists have come out with a theory in regard to crime and the criminal justice system, such as the police, courts, and the prisons that deal with people who are accused of having committed crimes. Let's see what conflict theorists have to say about this. Will move us to the second point of the conflict perspective, which is the law as an instrument of oppression. Conflict theorists regard power and social inequality as the main characteristics of society, and the criminal justice system is used by the power elite as an instrument of oppression to protect their possession of power and privilege. With their large numbers, the working class and those below them are a special threat to the power elite. Receiving the least of society's material rewards, they hold the potential to rebel and overthrow the current social order. To prevent this, the law is made. The purpose is to put the working class and those below them in the order of society held by the power elite, mainly to prevent a revolution. The underclass are a special problem to the upper class family. Their street crimes threaten the social order that keeps the elite in power. Therefore, they are to be punished severely. And that's why prison is made and what prison is for. Therefore, the criminal justice system does not focus on the crimes and harms caused by the capitalist class or the powerful family. Yet, the violation of the capitalist class cannot be ignored completely, because if they become too outrageous or oppressive, it might cause a great anger in the working class, encouraging them to rise up and revolt. To prevent this, punishments are occasionally prosecuted toward the capitalist class. This is to provide an evidence of fairness of the criminal justice system. The powerful, however, are usually able to bypass the courts, appearing instead before an agency that has no power to imprison. These agencies are directed by people from wealthy backgrounds who sympathize with the capitalist class or the upper class, and it is they who oversee the case of crime that is caused by the upper class family. This is the end of part 1, and let's move on to the second part, which is the reaction to deviance.
So hello everyone, now let's move on to another part which is about reaction to deviance. In this lesson, I will show you how the US react to this deviance. So if you look at the figure 8.2, you can see that the US prison population is gradually increased over the year. Between 1970 to 2007, the US population increased about 48%, while the number of prisoners increased about 860%, which is a rate that is 7 times greater than the population growth. So due to this huge increase, US isn't be able to build a prison fast enough to hold all their income prisoners. Because of that, federal government of US have hired private companies to operate additional prisons for them. Now let's look on how are these prisoners coming from. In the table 8.3 show that most prisoners are younger than 35 and almost all prisoners are men. Not just that, surprisingly half of prisoners are African Americans. Finally, note how merit and education, two of the major techniques society has of ensuring us, provide protection from prison. And you can see that most prisoners have never married. For education, you can see that high school graduate is the most prisoner. However, the people who drop out of high school have a higher chance of ending up in prison, and only a small chance for college have ended up in prison. So to stop off this criminal from increase over the year, the US had created the law which is called Three Strike and You Out. In California, the Three Strike Law enacted in 1994 made the punishment for the committed the third strike a 25-year to life sentence in jail. This Three Strike Law happened when someone who is convicted of a third felony such as murder, manslaughter, sex offenses, kidnapping, and robbery. So this is the end of my part. Now let's move on to another part which is presented by my teammate.
And now let's move to the next part, the decline in violent crime. The crime rate dropped sharply since 1990, especially in the United States. So, what are the strategies that this country used to manage violent crime? Actually, there are two important factors that contribute to the decline in violent crime. One is tough sentencing and the other one is economic concerning. In US, the legislators have passed the three strike laws and it has been practiced over 24 different states in US. As the law has occurred, the crime rate dropped sharply. The other points, they reduce in drug use and even abortion. For the economic factor, they believe that people who are too free from work will involve in illegal crime in order to earn money to support daily life. So, in order to deal with this problem, the country start to hire the employment. So, idle people are employed for working. Recidivism. Recidivism here refers to the act of a person repeating an undesirable behavior or crime, and the convict is rearrested. Some people might think that prisons are the place where the criminals or convicts are trained or taught to be the good peoples or citizens, but they turn out colossal failure. And we can measure the failures by the recidivism rate, the percentage of former prisoners who are rearrested. as the facts of U.S. prisoner, for people sent to prison for crimes of violence within just 3 years of their release, 2 out of 3, 62% are rearrested, and 52% are back in prison. Here you guys can see in the figure 6.3, which give a breakdown of 3 years recidivism by types of crime in US in 2003. And it is safe to conclude that prison do not teach people that crime doesn't pay. The death penalty and bias. Death penalty, or known as capital punishment, is a government-sanctioned practice whereby a person is put to death by the state as a punishment for a crime. There are many countries in the globe use this law to drop down the criminals and crime. For instance, in the US, people who committed the serious crimes such as murder, rape, terrorism, robbery, or drug dealings are put into death by using execution methods such as beheading, lethal injection, electrocution, shooting, or hanging. Even though the death penalty or capital punishment is set up to again with the crime, most people are not really agree with this idea to put people in the death sentencing because the practice of this law, death penalty, is not administered evenly. It tends to be biased some parts such as social bias. People living in poverty are disproportionately affected by the death penalty for many reasons. They are an easy target for the police. They cannot afford the lawyers. The free legal assistance they receive is low quality. Tracing witness is too costly. In turn, people who are poor, the chance of being sentenced to death are immensely higher than the rich. And for the gender bias, it is almost unheard for the women to be sentenced to death, as the statistic in 1930 in the United States shows that less than 1% of 5,047 executions in the US have been of women. For the geography, it is based on the areas where people commit murder greatly affected their chance of being put to death. For the last bias is on the race ethnicity. The death penalty showed a big bias on the race ethnicity, especially between the blacks and white. A lawyer in Virginia, Mr. Donald Partington, was shocked when he found that 2,798 men had been convicted for rape and attempted rape in Virginia. In that, 56% were white people and the other 44% were black. For attempted rape, 13 had been executed. For rape, 41 men had been executed. All these executed were blacks, no one white. So we can see even laws is said to be protected people from crime, but the practice is still uneven and unfair.
Now we move to another point is about legal change. Did you know that it is a crime in Saudi Arabia for a woman to drive a car, and a crime in Florida to sell alcohol before 1 p.m. on Sunday? Usually, crime varies from one society to another, from one group to another, within the same society and also from one time period to another. Now we will talk about one of the chain in thinking critically segment. In the 1980s, another new crime was born, and it is called hate crime. Hate crime is a crime that is punished more severely because it is motivated by hatred, dislike, hostility, animosity of someone, race, ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, disability, or national origin. If someone injure or kill another person because of that person's race, ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, national origin, or disability, he or she was charged with assault or murder. Now we go to another point is about the trouble with official statistics. Do you think that official statistics on crime are reliable? According to the conclusion of both symbolic interactionists, that the police operates a large measure of discretion and conflict theories that a power elite control the legal system indicate that we must be cautious when using crime statistics. Actually, crime statistics are a human reaction. One major element in producing them is the particular law that exists. Another is how the law are enforced. Still another is how officials report their statistics. Change this factor and statistics also change.
So now let's move to another point in the reaction of deviance, which is the medicalization of deviance. So, in order to medicalize something, it has to be made into a medical matter or have to be classified as a form of illness that needs the care of physicians. According to Sigmund Freud, a Vietnamese physician found out the way to medicalize deviance. In this case, the act of deviance including crime such as raping, stealing, murdering, cheating, and so on are considered to be the external symptoms of internal disorder, in which is also a sign of mental illness. However, Thomas, who profession in psychiatry, argue that mental illnesses are neither mental or illness. They are simply a problem with behavior itself. Some behavior that considered to be mental illness are actually physical illness that lead to some unusual perceptions or behavior of people. Take ADD for example, attention deficit disorder. No one knows where this disease came from, nor no one knows how to explain or run any diagnose it with objective tests. It's only been diagnosed by the complaint in child misbehaving. If you take a look at misbehaving child, it has been a problem for many years. But now it has been diagnosed as a mental illness. So all people have trouble, but that doesn't mean they face mental illnesses. However, social experience is the key to those bizarre behavior, or we can say in other words, deviance in general. If we look at homeless people, by living on the street can cause them to have mental illness. Living in the cold without any shelter and being hostile on the street. These experiences are the main cause that lead them to unusual thinking and behavior. Moving on to the last point, which is the need of more human approach. Because deviance is inevitable, or we can say in other words, unavoidable, a main issue is to find ways to protect people from deviant behavior that are harmful to themselves or others, to tolerate those behaviors that are not harmful, as well as to develop systems of fairer treatment for deviants. So what we need is a more humane social system in which prevent the social inequalities of people and create a more equal society for people. So that is all of our presentation. Thank you all for your concentrative attention.